Where is the domestic violence registration? Welcome to Change the Conversation with the Hopefulist. My name is Wendy McClure, and it's time we had a conversation about living in a patriarchy and how that affects our lives. Together, we can make a difference and change the conversation. Hello, and welcome back to Change the Conversation with the Hopefulist. I appreciate you. And thank you for being here. Today, we're going to talk about the Domestic Violence Registry. You know, sort of similar to the sex offender registry. What, you didn't hear about this? Oh, that's because there isn't one. That's right. We do have the sex offender registry that was enacted by Megan's Law back in 1994 in the state of New Jersey, the state that I am proud to live in. And it was adopted nationwide by 1996. So it's been 30 years that we've had this registry for sex offenders to let the general public know who has been arrested and convicted of sexual assault so that we can protect ourselves, so that the public can protect themselves and take extra precautions when they know that somebody like that has moved into their neighborhood. And it would be so helpful to women if they had such a registry for those who have been accused and convicted of domestic violence. Because did you know that 92% of women murdered in the U.S. are killed by men that they know? 92%. Now, these stats are from 2018. They are the most recent stats I could find for some odd reason, but it's not that long ago, and that is jarring. It's jarring. 92% of women in the U.S., 92% of women that are murdered in the U.S. are killed by men that they know. Strip this down a little bit more. 63% of them were killed by a current husband, an ex-husband, or a boyfriend. You know, and this goes to the whole not all men theory. You know, if you're talking about men in general, you always have these men that come in and say, well, not all men. I'm not like that. Not all men. Yeah, but the problem is we don't know which ones. We don't know which men. You know, that would be like having 4 shots of tequila and one is poison. Now, you don't know which one is the poison. Are you going to drink any of the shots? No, of course not. But we still have been dating. We still get married. We still start families with men who predominantly are the biggest danger to us. So here's the thing, and I want you to really think about this for a minute. Why are we more concerned with why a woman stays in a domestic violence abuser situation than with the abusive man? Because what is the first question that is always asked when some woman gets abused and gets hurt? Well, why did she stay with him? Why did she stay with somebody who was repeatedly beating her? See, this is what we deal with. This is what patriarchy has done, is we have always been the go-to for blame. It is always a question about what the woman has done to deserve the treatment that she has endured. When a woman is sexually assaulted, what was she wearing? How much did she have to drink? What was she saying? Was she flirting? Because if you flirt and you're wearing a sexy outfit, then clearly, then you are asking for it, which is complete and total BS. But it's the same thing with this. Why is the first question always, why does she stay with him? Why isn't the first question, what is with the abuse of men? And this was all done by design. This is the actual definition of patriarchy. So what we need to do is to change the conversation to put the onus on the rightful party, because they have conditioned us and trained us to take the blame. It's just perfectly normal for us to say, why does she stay with him? Instead of saying, why is he abusing her? So we need to rename it. We need to call it what it is. We need to call them wife beaters or women beaters. And this has even been, destigmatized by the fact that there's a white t-shirt or a white tank top that is called a wife beater. I really should look into how that even started, because it's ridiculous that something like that is just being used as an article of clothing. That's the name of an article of clothing. Again, I didn't look into it. I will at some point. I will post about it. But we should be calling domestic violence abusers wife beaters, woman beaters. And if women are guilty of the same thing, call them man beaters, call them husband beaters. I have no problem with that. We need to stop using these terms that make it so that it doesn't really accurately describe the situation that's happening. Because it's a lot more impactful to say, yeah, he's a wife beater, than to say he's a domestic violence abuser. The domestic violence abuser, it's almost like a pretty name put on somebody that just beats the crap out of their wife or the women in their lives. Just like we talk about crimes against women, that women are not going to be able to, that women are just having these things happen to them. It's not like men are actually doing the actions that are causing these sexual abuse, the sexual assault, the sexual harassment. It's not just violence against women. It's men's violence against women. And let me tell you a little bit about the experience that I've had with somebody who was known for beating the girlfriends in his life. And of course, I didn't know this when I started dating him. That's why it would be helpful if there was a registry that every time a woman met a man and was trying to determine whether she was going to date him or not, that she could go to this registry and see if his name is on it. Because why are we protecting their identities? Why are we protecting the identities of men who have broken the law, who have abused women? When women really have no recourse when it comes to this. That's why 92% of women that are murdered by people that they know. Because you call the police and you say, he threatened to kill me, and they say, there's nothing we can do until he actually kills you or actually tries to kill you. Yeah, that's very helpful to the woman in danger. Even these restraining orders are a joke. If a man is intent on killing a woman, he doesn't care about a restraining order. It doesn't matter. So if we had a registry to go to and look up, that would be very helpful for women to stay out of abusive relationships. Because, again, let's keep in mind what patriarchy has done to women. It has convinced them that they are useless without a man. And back to my story, when I had moved to a new town, I was about 32 years old, and I was already feeling like I was, sour milk on the shelf. I felt like I was old and haggard and nobody wanted me, and there was something wrong with me, and society viewed me as, a spinster, an old maid, what have you. And I felt that. I felt that so deeply. I felt like something was wrong with me because I couldn't find a guy to settle down with. So when I started dating somebody new and things were going well, I thought, oh, I like this guy. This can be really good. And I actually, because of the position that I had at the time, which was a co-host at a radio station, I talked about him. And his ex-girlfriend actually sent me an email to the radio station to tell me that she was in a relationship with him for 5 years and he beat her continuously. And she finally escaped. And she wanted to warn me. Now, I was a couple of months in to this relationship. And now, I wasn't that far in. Some people don't find out until they're married and have a couple of kids, because it's not like you go on a first date and they beat the crap out of you. No, they wait. They wait until they have you, until they hook you. And even just in the short time that I had been involved in this guy, I had convinced myself this is going to be the one. This is the one that's going to save me from looking like there's something wrong with me. This is the one that is going to make me okay in society, that I will no longer be an old maid or a spinster or all of the different wonderful, lovely names they come up for women that don't have a husband. And I am so glad that the women are figuring this out. I am so happy that women are no longer falling for this BS. I actually had a video on TikTok the other day, and in it, I was going after a certain demographic, let's say, and I reached that demographic, and they came at me. They came at me hard. They called me a man, and they called me worthless, and they called me all kinds of things. And, it's just typical. It's just typical. Men are going to try and make women feel ugly because appearance is what is valued in a woman more than anything. So that's why they're coming at me. Oh, I forgot. The cats. 19 cats. The house probably smells like cat urine, all kinds of cats. And here's the thing. This is what I'm so happy about. This is what I'm so proud of for my fellow women. We don't care if you call us ugly. If you think that I look like a man, I don't care. My husband doesn't think I look like a man. I don't think I look like a man. I don't look like a man. I just don't. You can say it all you want. I know what you're doing. I know what you're trying. And again, the whole, die alone with your boxed wine and 7 cats. Again, don't threaten me with a good time. We are not falling for it anymore. It's not hurting our feelings. You're not shaming or embarrassing me. You're just making yourself look a bit of like a fool. But you keep doing you, and women are going to keep getting more empowered and stop listening to these patriarchal societal rules that has us being blamed for everything. So a couple of months in, when I find out that he's the woman beater, I was so mixed up in the I don't want to be a spinster, I don't want to be a spinster, I don't want to be a spinster, that I continued to stay with him in spite of this information. Of course, he denied it. Of course, he said that the, ex-girlfriend was just trying to ruin things for him. But think about that if you don't find out until after you're married, or you don't know that until after you have a kid or two. They act like it's just so easy to walk away. Like I said, women have been brainwashed. At least my generation, at least me, has been brainwashed to feel like we have absolutely no value if we are not attached to a man. And that worked on me. It did. It worked on me. I didn't get married until I was 41. And, now I'm like, thank God I didn't, because I got me a good man. I really have a 99% chance of surety that he's not ever going to kill me. I can never say 100% because, you just never know. But 99% sure, that's not going to happen. I got a good guy, an evolved guy, a guy who supports me, a guy who is going to back me up. And if I would have gotten married when I was 26 to 34, no, that wouldn't have happened. Absolutely would not have happened. I would have been with somebody much different than my husband is. And, to prove that point even further, my husband is about as far as you can get from the type of man that I dated most of my life. Yeah, it's like, so ladies, if you are still dating, go off type. Go off type. They often say that you date the guy that you feel you are worthy of. And it takes sometimes a really long time for women to feel worthy on their own, because we are encouraged to not feel any worth if we're on our own. This society thinks that women who are single have no worth. Now, we know that's not true, especially now, and women are finally waking up to that fact. But this is how it's been for decades and centuries. And so I was all caught up in my feelings, and it was very conflicting for me when I found out this information about him, potentially beating women in his past. Now, I brought it up often. I almost tried to challenge him to do it just to see, which was really stupid. It was really stupid. But every time we got into an argument, he'd be like, are you going to hit me? What are you going to do? Are you going to start hitting me? Because that's what I hear you do. Come on. Are you going to hit me or what? He never did. Never once did he hit me. I managed to get out of that situation unscathed. Unfortunately for me, I happen to know the next girl did not fare so well. The next girl was put in the hospital. But again, if his name would have been on some sort of registry, we can find out before we even get started in a relationship. And I don't think that's a terrible thing. But once again, in this society, they don't really care about protecting women. I mean, they kind of do. They pretend like they do. They put a couple of laws in there, But now they're even talking about taking away the law that states that somebody that's been convicted of domestic violence, there used to be a law that they wouldn't be allowed to own a gun. Well, they want to take that law away now. Let's just give guns to the domestic violent men. Let's give guns to the men who love to beat the women in their lives. Yeah. So again, they acted like they cared for just a little bit. But now we know better. They don't care. They don't care if women die. We're at that point where we know now they don't value our lives in this society. If so, there wouldn't be all these abortion bans going on. All of these exceptions for the life of the mother that are not real. They are not real. Ask Kate Cox from Texas, who sued to get a life-saving and a fertility-saving abortion so that she could potentially get pregnant again and have another child. But what they're doing now is, instead of abortions, many states are trying to just do C-sections instead. Major abdominal surgery, which absolutely affects your ability to carry another child in the future. And the reason that they are doing this is because they are trying to prove that abortion is never necessary. That's the point of giving women C-sections instead of a pill that could take care of it safely and effectively. Let's put them through major abdominal surgery and really limit their chances to have children in the future. Because it's all about what they want. It's all about the result that they're looking for, which is that they want to say that abortion is never necessary. So let's put women through that torture, through that major surgery, when they could just take a pill. They don't care about women's suffering. They're making it clear each and every day. They don't care about women's suffering. And that is the main reason why there is not a domestic violence registry. So, every situation that we hear things like, why are we more concerned with why a woman stays in a domestic violence situation than with the abuser? This is how they have trained us to have internalized misogyny. It's the same thing about women who stay home, take care of the kids, take care of the house, go and buy the food, prepare the food for the husband, make sure that he has everything that he needs, that's not worth anything. And that's the biggest conspiracy theory of the century, that women are just, at home eating bonbons. It's so ludicrous, but yet we've all fallen for it. We've all just continued to go off of that narrative. And now that women are working outside the home as well, they've got to do all of that. And then most of the domestic labor, emotional labor, and mental labor at home. And yet we still aren't good enough. We're still being held to these standards that are impossible. Completely impossible. So the only way to discover how much internalized misogyny that we actually have, and I still have it, we have had it ingrained in us since we were born. I'm in my 50s. That's a long time. One of the greatest examples that, an easy example that I still do all the time is when I'm talking about a doctor, the first thing I say is him. Well, what did he say? Doctors aren't all men now. They haven't been for a very long time, but yet I've been conditioned to think that, doctors are men, construction workers are men, engineers are men, scientists are men. Yeah, this is going to take some time. That's kind of a bit of a harmless one. It's not hurting anybody, but it's still conditioning us to think that men are only in these powerful positions. And that's just not true. So the only way to combat this, to see how much internal misogyny that we have and how do we combat it, we have to stop. And that is an acronym. I want to go through each letter and tell you this is how you start to recognize your own internalized misogyny and how to combat that. So stop. The S. See situations as they are. Again, I go back to more concerned with a woman that stays with a domestic violence abuser than the abusive man. Why are women who have to ask their husband 5 times to do a task the bad guy, the nag, instead of having it accurately represented as the man being a lazy loser who can't do something after being asked 5 times to do it? These are just a couple of examples. So see situations as they are. I want you to take the time to process Use your critical thinking. Again, these are so ingrained because they started when we were children. And it's been taught to us as, well, that's just the way it is. That's the status quo. Okay, it's time to question the status quo. It's time to question why that has been the way that it's always been. So really just use your critical thinking skills and process these situations that are set up to make women look bad while men are not being held accountable at all. Again, crimes against women, domestic violence. No mention of men in either one of those situations. The O in stop is open your mind to the bevy of ways that this has affected your life. That the fact that maybe you were like me. Maybe you grew up thinking that you were a loser in love, that you were an old spinster and worthless because no man wanted you. Maybe you fell into this trap that you have to be married and have children, that is your destiny in life. I mean, it was talked about to me like it was a foregone conclusion. It was never if I had gotten married and had kids. It was when. This is perpetrated throughout our entire lives. Comes to our careers and going to college and all kinds of different issues that they have convinced us that we are less than unless we are a certain way. The way that we have to be super thin, the way that we have to look great all the time. We always have to look perfect. We have to have our makeup done and our hair done and to have, dressed to the nines and to look good and sexy and attractive for our men. But then we're called high maintenance. Then we're accused of taking too long to get ready. Do you see what I'm saying? There are so many examples of this. So open up your mind and think about the ways that this internalized misogyny has affected your life. And finally, I think that once you start to see it, it takes a little while to adjust your mind from what you've always known to see what is the actual truth. But once you do, you will start to see it everywhere and in everything. And when you do, when you get to that point, I want you to use the P and stop to point out your learning and discoveries to others. Talk to other women. Explain to them what you have discovered. And you won't ever get there if you don't try. This is why it's so important to point it out to others. You have to be made aware of it in order to realize how much it has affected you. Because once you realize how much it has affected you, you can go about things differently. You can know that there is another way, that there is more than one path. And we've always known this on a logical sense, but not really on an emotional plane. That we've always, even though we say, like my mom used to say to me, Wendy, you could be married tomorrow if you really wanted to be, which was true. I really could have been married to anybody if I was just willing to take anybody. And I actually saw a woman say that the other day, that, if women want to be married, if they want to be in a married relationship, we know how to do that. We just have to do everything that the man wants us to do. We have to clean for him. We have to cook for him. We have to have sex with him on demand whenever he wants it. We have to look the other way if he wants to cheat. We have to not say anything when he's out with the boys and drinking in the bar and out at the club. And, we have to let him do whatever it is he wants. Let everything slide that would bother us. And we can be married. Not happily married, but we can be married. So like I said, it's completely different on the emotional level than it is on the logical level. Because logically, I knew that I could be married. But emotionally, just the fact that I wasn't still made me feel like there was something wrong with me. Like I had no worth. So once again, stop. See the situation as they are. Take time to process and use critical thinking, not emotional thinking, critical thinking. Open your mind to all of the ways this has affected your life. We're talking again about internalized misogyny. And point out your learning to others. This will go very far in the movement to have women decenter men. And when I use the term decenter men, all that means is that we're not living only for the male gaze. We're not living only to be what men want us to be. That we are putting ourselves first, like men always do and have never been judged for it. We put ourselves first. And if we meet a guy that's nice and adds to our life, we can be in a wonderful relationship. But this whole, I need a man to be worthy, that is over. That is done. We are not falling for it anymore. And we teach other women that is okay. That even if they are judged and shamed, we don't care. Because no matter what we do, we are judged and shamed. Ask any working mother. Working mothers are shamed by the stay-at-home moms, and the other working mothers are shaming they're shaming the same stay-at-home moms. Like, we can't win as women. We will always be judged and shamed for whatever decision we decide to make. So I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed this episode, please pass it along. Just hit that, forward button and copy the link, send it to a friend. I would so appreciate it. If you have not given me a rating yet, please give me a 5-star rating on the platform that you are listening on, whether it be Apple or Google or Spotify, whatever it is that you're listening on. I would appreciate it if you could go give me a 5-star review. Don't forget to check out my website, Hopefulist.com. And if you haven't signed up for my email newsletter, please do so. I talk about this stuff each and every week, how we can figure out how to move forward and be empowered as women, and what we can do to secure rights and to be treated more equally in this country. So go on out there and be badass. I'm always here cheering you on. Thank you for joining me in this conversation. Together, we are better. Please visit my website at hopefulist.com and remember to hit that subscribe or follow button.